No buzz. The Just Bees Book Club. I read a very good piece of nonfiction. This is the best nonfiction I've read this year, which is not super high praise. Best book of nonfiction, I should say. Hathaway's What a Mushroom Lives For. It's really good, but I talked about that and some of my disappointments. Nourishing Resistance was another thing I read this year that was pretty solid. That anarchism book from the very beginning of the year was what it was. Watch the Family was solid, but yeah, I took a few months and slowly read through Palo Alto, A History of California Capitalism in the World by Malcolm Harris. I don't know. I've liked Malcolm's writing for a long time. I never finished one of his books before, and I kind of expected the same to happen here, especially just because I've had such a rough time with nonfiction this year, just in terms of like, I started a handful of things, and I get to a certain point, and then they sort of fall off, or I feel like I'm not quite getting in, and try to start from a section again, and I'm just like, it's not working, or I just forget about them. It's like at least one collection of Delaney's that I like read like 2 chapters of and was like, this is brilliant and I love it, and then I just don't know where it is anymore. It's probably on a bookshelf somewhere. So yeah, I fully expected to read. I like literally got this and was like, I'm gonna take this home. I'll probably read the first 30 pages and then kind of it'll wander off into the distance somewhere, and it didn't. It stuck around. I took some longer breaks, and I'm not going to really talk that much about the substance of the book because I don't really feel equipped to or feel like it. And this is a Just Bees book club where you're only allowed to watch if you're a bee. If you watch, you're a bee. I don't remember where I'm at in that timeline at this point. It got me. It got me. It's really good. It's really fun. It's like a fun read, and smart, and it was bracing and like thoroughly Marxist in a way that was like invigorating. I don't know. It made me feel good to read this in a way that like, let's rephrase that slightly. When I talked about What a Mushroom Lives For, I think my big thing that I said was that I like came into that book with a hope that seemed to be a sort of promise, a potential promise, that not only was I going to come away from that book, sort of knowing a bit more about mushrooms, but that there was a sort of a theory being developed within it that would help a broader understanding of the world of mushrooms and of capital and et cetera, et cetera. And the way I came away from that book was feeling like there was some really neat facts about mushrooms. Coming away from Palo Alto feels like, damn, there's a lot of facts, but also there is a theoretical apparatus, as they say over on Range Touch a lot often, game study buddies specifically. There is a way of comprehending the world that is baked into this, and it is thoroughly pushed throughout, without actively distorting the history as is, as it were. And I was like, I forgot how good it feels to read that. I've been out of the university for some time, and the fact that Paris did it in a way that is a pretty approachable read. There is not a lot of Marxian jargon in here in a way that like I don't mind, but I know other people do. There are a lot of it is sort of it. I mean, it does just a good job of using characters, right? Herbert Hoover is sort of the big bad of this. Leland Stanford is sort of persistent throughout. The last chapter, the last section, even. Let's see, real quick. Section 5 that goes from. So the structure of this book is It's 5 sections. Section 1 starts in 1850. They each represent something like 30 to 50 year history. So 1850 to 1900, 1900 to 45, 45 to 75, 75 to 2000, and 2000 to 2020. The last bit of the last section of this book is that meme that's like, the people who are destroying the planet have names and addresses. It's that meme, but a chapter. It is just a list of the people who make our lives bad in the world. You know the list. The Teals, the Musks, etc. And that was really fun too. I forgot where I started that sentiment. But yeah, I had a pretty lovely time. Oh yeah. There's it does do a thing that I think is pretty impressive. That I wanted to shout out, because you know, a lot of when one thinks of Marxist sort of histories, you think of the abandonment of the great man theory of history, right? Specifically, if you're doing a historical materialist understanding of history, often people will shy away from individuals and talk about forces. And Harris does this brilliantly by using the narrative framing that is much more accessible in individual lives, while still talking about forces. The sort of really big early one, right, is like, so I didn't know shit about Stanford, the family. Early on, Harris does a pretty fantastic job of, you know, running you through Leland Stanford's sort of business, his ideals, etc. The Palo Alto system that he creates at a horse racing, horse farm. And Harris specifically does a pretty fantastic job of talking about Leland Stanford Jr. and you know, what a hale and hearty specimen he is, like purebred, as it were. All prepared to take on the world in the exact way that his father was like prepping him for, until he suddenly died. And I didn't know that he died. Harris had me in the narrative that Stanford raises Stanford Jr. to become the scion who found Stanford, and then he's our nemesis for a little while. And I was like, damn, this is a well-told story that that does a good job of prioritizing a historical materialist analysis of history, rather than, or a materialist analysis of history, rather than falling off into discussions of like what an inspired individual did, right? Yeah, and then the other thing I wanted to talk about is like, there's a lot of little fun bits in here. Not even like facts, but just like every once in a while you kind of, I didn't take any notes or anything. I was, you know, reading this big old book while walking around like a fool. But there was like 4 or 5 times when I would just read something and be like, you just alliterated that sentence for fun, didn't you? You're just having a little fun bit of alliteration, just having a little joyful time writing this thing, doing a little playful bit here. It's like never egregious, just kind of tastefully showing a touch of joy in the middle of this very, very often joyless history. And I quite liked that bit, and that's, you know, indicative, right, of the fact that I was able to get through this, right? Is there are just little moments like that where it's like, here's a little bit of fun to be had. There's a little bit of fun to be had in the section on the 70s where, you know, the Bay Area is just getting bombed left and right to end the Vietnam War, and that's fun too. Yeah, I think that's all I have to sort of say about Palo Alto, other than, yes, I mean, like I said, Harris, good writer. Never quite stuck with one of his books before. And this one kind of didn't grab me by the scruff of the neck or anything. Because, like I said, it took me a while, but I kept coming back to it, and I kept having a good time with it, and feeling like it was worth my time. Which, in a year when nonfiction has been, when I've been reading or I've started so many pieces or nonfiction books, histories, theory stuff, whatever, that feel extremely worth my time, but I still can't stick with them just because brain go bad. This is nice. Thanks for not watching.